No professional athlete likes to sit on the bench for a game, for a weekend, for a week especially, not 189 days, but that's exactly what the drivers from the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Series have done. It's been 189 days since they have gotten behind the wheel of these Lamborghini Huracan Evos and driven them in anger. Welcome everyone to the beginning of the 2021 season for Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. I'm Brian Till along with Jeremy Shaw, bringing you the action from Circuit of the Americas, the FIA certified track where Formula One runs in Austin, Texas. 4 different classes of cars in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. And Jeremy, tell us more.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time, but I tell you what, they come out in force. We've got a record 30 cars due to line up into the grid for today's opening round of the 2020-2021 championship. We've got 4 categories of in this 4 classes in this race. Everybody runs exactly the same car. It's a Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo, but 4 categories of drivers. We've got pro drivers, we've got pro-ams, we've got AMs, and then the least experienced class is for LB Cup, Lamborghini Cup. We've got 9 pro drivers, 6 pro-ams, 7 AMs, and 8 LB Cup contenders. Let's run down the starting grid, starting at the back in the 30th position. In car number 74, that's Tom Kerr. Alongside him, Mark Kawami in car number 47. Row 14, Scott Wellham, making his debut in the championship in car number 82, alongside John Hennessy. Row 13, Matt Dickin, one of the most experienced campaigners in the series, alongside John Hirschberg in car number 86. Row 12, Wild Bill Pelichowski makes his debut in car number 62, alongside last year's LB Cup champion Randy Solari in car number 03. Row 11 is Sandro Espinosa in car number 7, alongside Michael Minella, another debutant this weekend, who is fastest of the LB Cup contenders in car number 4 for MCR Racing. The 10th row of the grid, Luke Berkeley in car number 23, alongside Jordan Missig in car number 53, 2 more debutants. On row 9 on the outside, car number 51, Claude Signoretti from Brazil, alongside last year's AM champion, stepping up into the Pro-Am class this year, Victor Gomez in car number 29. Ashton Harrison will start car number 25 for the 16th position, alongside Alan Metney in car number 99. Row 7, Nelson Piquet Jr., yes, a former Grand Prix driver in car number 44 for the ANSA Motorsports team, alongside Gianni Torino, a teenager in car number 88 in a 13th position. Row 6 of the grid is Brian Ortiz from Puerto Rico in car number 46, alongside Californian Patrick Liddy in car number 31. Trevor Andrusco will start number 38 from the 10th position, and he is fastest of the AM contenders in this 30-car field. Alongside him, a championship contender in car number 6 is Stephen Argicani. 8th position on the grid, the leading Pro-Am car in the qualifying order, Luca Persiani from Italy in car number 22 for Dream Racing Motorsports, alongside a young Dutchman, Max Weering, in car number 61. Row 3, Kyle Marcelli from Canada in car number 1, alongside Houstonian Alec Udell in car number 48. Row 2, Daniel Mancinelli in car number 11, alongside Richard Antonucci, a former 2-time series champion in car number 27. On the front row of the grid is last year's champion driver Madison Snow in car number 16 for Change Racing. But on the pole position, a magnificent debut for the Frenchman for ANSA Motorsports in car number 13 is Nico Jamin.
I think, Jeremy, when I look at it too, it's just a stellar field. The talent that Chris Ward, who is the senior manager of motorsports for Automobile Lamborghini America, has assembled is pretty amazing. And it's really attracted not only drivers, but new teams. And we've got at least 4 new teams coming into the series this year, bringing 9 of those new Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evos with them. And like you said, the growth has just been spectacular. There is a look at the number 48. You can see up in the corner of the windshields, there is a triangular color that denotes what class car that is in. That orange color is the pro category cars. The yellow colors are going to be the Pro-Am cars. Green, those cars are the AM cars, and then the light blue are the LB Cup for the least experienced drivers in the field. The field right now getting the tires up to temperature on those reconnaissance lap, getting ready to do the pace lap that we can go green here. And I said it, 189 days since these competitors last got on a racetrack together, saw the green flag fall, and then raced for the 50 minutes that is standard for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series throughout the world. There's a European series, an Asian series, a North American series. All the races 50 minutes long. There is a mandatory pit stop that must be completed somewhere between the 20-minute mark and the 30-minute mark of the race. So you can run for 20 minutes and then pit, or you can stop anywhere in that 10-minute window, and the last driver, you can split it down the middle. You can do it short. You can have the first driver go long. It's all about the strategy, and especially, Jeremy, in the classes like Pro-Am, where you've got a professional and an amateur driver, you can decide which one you want to keep in, who's doing the lap time, who's getting caught in traffic. How do you use that pit stop for strategy?
Yeah, that's right. There is a lot to be thought of during these races. There won't be any, there's no fuel stops, no pitting for fuel, it's just the driver change. That's it, that's all you can change in the car during a pit stop. But there is a minimum pit stop time, and that time is from when the car enters the pit lane to when it exits the pit lane. And the minimum time for this race for the single driver cars is 91 seconds. For the excuse me, it's 94 seconds for the dual driver team cars, i.e. the cars that each will have two drivers during this race, is 94 seconds, so slightly longer for the teams that will be changing drivers during this race. The reason for that is the guy who's done the first 20 minutes or so of this race, he knows what the track conditions are like, he knows how the car is handling, he knows how the track feels at the wheel of the car. The driver getting in, he's cold, literally, when he hops in the car for the second half of the race. So it's going to take him, a few corners at least to get up to speed with exactly what is required, how the track has changed. Qualifying, for example, this morning was in the wet. It's now dry. So there's a lot to be learned there. That is why the teams that are running dual drivers, their pits will be slightly longer. Again, that could be critical during this race.
Cars finishing the reconnaissance lap, like we said. And Jeremy, I think that is such an important part, and I love the fact that several different series do it that way with a mandatory pit stop. If it's a single driver, the stop has to be longer for the reasons that you just said. If I come in and I've been on the racetrack, I know exactly where the grip is if it's changed from day to day. I know how the car is handling underneath me. I'm not going to have to go read it and learn the track for a lap or two before I can really get up to speed. I can hit the track at full speed as soon as I leave pit lane. So I really like that idea. Circuit of the Americas, 3.4 miles long. This is where the U.S. Grand Prix is held, or has been held over the last several years. A purpose-built racetrack up to FIA A standards, and that means everything is absolutely at the peak, the pinnacle of perfection as far as runoff areas go, curbing and the like, and the drivers like to come here. Interestingly enough, though, Jeremy, you and I were talking about the racetrack a little rougher now than it's been in years past. This is a very sandy soil here just south of Austin, Texas, and there's a lot of settling going on, and it's amazing to somebody who hasn't been here before. But you also talk about the elevation change into turn one, 3.4 miles long, 20 corners, and that climb into the braking zone of turn one is pretty spectacular.
Well, yeah, it's a great racetrack. I mean, it's super challenging for the drivers. The S's is super quick, the left and right through there. There's different variations on this track, but as you say, it hasn't weathered particularly well. And drivers who've been coming here now since the track was built, nearly 10 years ago, at least. How long ago was it? So it seems a long time ago now this track was built, but in some ways it seems just like yesterday, but it is a lot bumpier than it used to be. The lap record for these cars around this 3.4 mile racetrack is a 2 minutes 5.7. We haven't seen anybody this weekend under 2 minutes 8. And the reason is not that the cars are slower. The reason is the track is bumpier and less grippy than it was when these Lamborghinis were last here back in 2015.
Well, I think too, this Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan Evo, better aerodynamics than its predecessor. And so I think the combination of the racetrack and a better aerodynamic package, the car is faster through the corners, but has probably given up a little bit down the straightaways Think about this car, 620 horsepower, 420 foot-pounds of torque. It is speed limited electronically to 174 miles an hour. It'll go much faster than that, but in the words of the brass from Lamborghini, they don't want it to go any faster. They said, we allow the drivers to enjoy the power and the torque, but the Super Trofeo is meant to be a scholarship car to prepare the drivers to move up to GT3, and that was from Lamborghini Motorsport boss Giorgio Senna, who said that, and that makes perfect sense. You have drivers who have driven in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the GT3 category Lamborghini, and they'll tell you that this car, Madison Snow driving one this weekend, this car is very similar, except the GT3 car a little quicker in a straight line and perhaps a little better aerodynamics. But other than that, this car is a very, very serious race car.
It's a very potent race car indeed, Brian. I mean, as you say, Madison Snow, he won this championship last season. He's a former champion in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well a couple of years ago. So he has a huge amount of experience, and you know, he occasionally he will drive this. He has driven this car and his GTD car in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship on the same weekend, and that is a real challenge because the braking areas are different, as you say. These cars are actually a little bit quicker on the straight, actually quite a bit quicker on the straights than the GTD cars, but they do have a little bit more downforce, and they are a bit, they're a bit quick around the corners. Not quite as quick around the corners, but it's a very different beast, but it's a lot of race car. I know there's quite a few youngsters in this championship, and there's some older guys who've just done track days and they want to do some racing, and there's a lot of newcomers come into this championship. And I tell you what, this is a heck of a lot of race car for a newcomer to the sport.
I think, too, it's a lot to learn for experienced drivers. You look at a driver like Nelson Piquet Jr., who has driven all types of cars, won championships in Formula E, driven Formula One, driven NASCAR, you name it. He's driven it and run at the front of the pack with it. But this is a different ballgame. Anti-lock braking system, traction control, you've got good horsepower, good aerodynamics. And one of the things that the drivers have told me, especially drivers who come from non-ABS Formula car backgrounds, Paul Tracy drove Lamborghini Super Trofeo a couple of years ago, and he just said, it's so difficult for me to get used to the braking, the ABS system in the car, and how you utilize it, and how you go to the brake pedal versus how you would do so in a high downforce Formula car like an Indy car. It's just a completely different approach. And while hitting a golf ball might seem very similar to hitting a baseball, it's a ball and a stick. The science behind it may be similar, but the method of doing it is completely different.
Well, it really is. Talking to Paul Tracy, he actually owned one of these Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars, and in fact sold it to Ophir Levy, who is making his debut this weekend. That's number 31 car, was owned up until last year by Paul Tracy, the ex champion in the IndyCar series. So yeah, that car has some provenance, and Ophir Levy making his debut this weekend. He's going to be sharing that car with a talented young Californian, Patrick Liddy, and they're running in the Pro-Am class. So Patrick, he's got a fair amount of experience in these cars. He's done 18 races in the North American series. Last year, 2020, he went over to Europe and raced in the European Lamborghini Super Trofeo series alongside the son of a former motorcycle world champion, Johnny Cicotto, who Johnny Jr. drove in the North American series a couple of years ago. Patrick went over and kind of returned the favor and drove over there last year with him. So that's a sort of lineup we're seeing here. Somebody who's just starting out in the sport in Ophir, and Patrick, who's got quite a bit of experience, even though he's only 23 years of age.
Well, and that's the other thing. If you're a golfer and you're sitting there in the stands and you're thinking, well, I wonder how this works. This is not going out and playing with your buddy and you're hitting from the blues and they're hitting from the whites. This is you're playing from the same tee box. This is, you're a pilot. We saw a great view of downtown skyline of Austin as the clouds have kind of cleared away a little bit, and that's good news. But if you're a pilot and you fly a Cessna 172 and you know someone who's in the Air Force that flies an F-22 Raptor, you're both pilots, but you operate very different machinery. That's not what this is. This is the pilots flying the same aircraft, and it's not the Air Force pilot stepping down to something with single engine and a prop. It's that inexperienced pilot climbing in to into that cockpit of that very sophisticated aircraft. That's what you have in a series like Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America. It is that technology, and that's one of the things that I think makes it cool. As a driver, you can find someone to go race with who is better than you. They can make you a better driver. That's all well and good, but you get to operate the same machinery that they do. What better way to test yourself against some of the best in the business?
It is so cool. I mean, there's several drivers in this race who are making their professional racing debut here this evening at Circuit of the Americas. There's also ex-GP2 champion and former Grand Prix driver Nelson Piquet Jr. I mean, all ends of the spectrum are covered here in this race, and it's a very cool thing. And as you say, for drivers getting started in the sport, they might not be in their first flush of youth, but they've got hooked on the sport, and here's an opportunity to have somebody alongside who literally drives the same car just moments before or afterwards that can give you the feedback and improve your standards of driving. And it's a great opportunity. That is one of the strengths of this Lamborghini Super Trofeo series.
Indeed it is. Cars now behind the safety car, the pace car. As I said earlier, it's been 189 days. That's 27 weeks, more than 6 months since these drivers have climbed behind the wheel of this Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan Evo, and they are about to go green here at Circuit of the Americas. The front row is going to be quite a battle, and it's an interesting one, Jeremy. We talk about the weather. Both the drivers of the 16, Stephen McAleer and Madison Snow, said they struggled in the dry, but the car was alive in the wet. They moved well forward from their practice times. And for Madison Snow, he'll start second. Stephen McAleer will start on pole tomorrow with a lap time that he put in. But what kind of car do they have underneath them now? That's the question. The track has gone back dry, but we also had NASCAR cars on the track, so there's been a different kind of rubber that's been put down. What's the balance going to be like? No one really knows.
They don't. Lots of question marks are going to be answered in the next few minutes. And for fans here at the racetrack, a couple of Texas drivers to watch out. We talked about Alec Udell from Houston, the Woodlands in Texas. He's driving the number 48 car this weekend. Also from Austin, Texas is Alan Metney in the car number 99. Alan is running the AM category in the car number 99 for Change Racing. So there's a couple of local guys to watch out for.
Lights off on the Lamborghini pace car. And this needs to be an orderly start as they come through turn 13 and 14 towards turn 15. Bo Barfield, the race director in race control, has told these drivers they need to be in order in their lanes, and they need to stay that way until after across the start line. No peaking, no improvement in your column or against the column beside you, so it needs to be a nice orderly start. And while that's great for the photographers, Jeremy, what that does is it puts everybody up to turn one together, and that's when it gets really tight, really quick.
Yeah, it seems real wide as they're heading off across the start-finish line, but I tell you what, it narrows down distinctly when they get up to the top of the hill in turn one.
All right, looking for green. Right now, that bright red of Nico Jameen on the pole. The light blue, Madison Snow beside him, and then right behind, Richard Antonucci, Danielle Mancinelli. They're charging. The green is out. We're racing in COTA. Up the hill to turn one. Heavy braking. Cars already using that pit outline. And what a move by the purple. That's Richard Antonucci, the 27. He may have gone to the lead. He's certainly fighting for it.
Yeah, he did. He kind of using his experience there, how late he could brake. This is the first time Nico Jameen has driven this car, and Nico there just showing his own experience as a racing driver. He said, "Okay, you're on the inside line. I'll let you go, but you're going to run wide at the exit because I at least have raced here in the past, and I know what I can do and what I can't do, and you're not going to be able to hold that line tightly and keep the lead." So Jameen was able to retake the lead on the exit, but a nice clean start from all 30 cars.
Contact there, the 31 slides a little bit wide. That was Patrick Liddy. Spoke about him just a little bit earlier. And that purple 27, Richard Antonucci, what a great run. His experience, as you said, what kind of drive can he get off of turn 11? The first run at speed down the back straightaway, and a problem for the 51. Cineretti has gone around, back underway. It looks like the car's okay, but that certainly is going to set him back. Antonucci taking the fight straight to the leader, and he is through the braking and turns well. But what will the officials say about that extra pavement that he used at the exit of 12? One of the things in the driver's briefing was the line that said track limits will be enforced.
Yeah, they will, and clearly he used that to his advantage there, that extra pavement off the proper part of the racetrack to carry more momentum through that corner and take the lead from Nico Jubin. So it is going to be Richard Antonucci who leads this race. 40 years old now is Richard. He was born in Rome, Italy. He is American, however, and has a lot of experience in these cars. 14 race wins, 2 championships to his credit, out in front at the end of the first lap.
Antonucci leaps to the front, and that slides Nico Jubin back, the 61. Is that Weering all the way up there in third already as they come across the line? Indeed it was. What a start by Weering in the 61. He lined up 7th on the grid, Jeremy. He's now up to 3rd.
He has, and he's a youngster from the Netherlands. Not done an awful lot of racing, but he has been racing for a couple of years now. Did some karting before that, and he actually won the first round of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe earlier this season at Monza in Italy. So he is, while most of these guys are racing these cars for the first time this year, that is not the case for Max Weering, the youngster in car number 61, up into 3rd position.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you, Jeremy. When I look at that and we talk about the length of time that this series has been in hiatus since last season, and Weering with not only some driving under his belt, but racing under his belt, and I think that's what's important. And look at the block there by Mancinelli. I believe that's Mancinelli. In front of the one, indeed it was. Mancinelli has slid back from his 4th place starting position. He's back now in the 7th, and it was Kyle Marcelli in the black and blue number 1 trying to get by, and pretty vicious block by Daniel Mancinelli there. And blocking rules in this series are pretty simple. If you move in response to the car behind you, you can be penalized for blocking if the officials think that it was too much. So, and speaking of too much, a little rub in there. You think about these $300,000 Lamborghini race cars, and a little bump there, I think by Madison Snow, I should say, in the 16. Just a little rub on the back of the 61 of Weering in front.
Some pretty close racing going on out there, isn't there?
Spectacular.
It really is. I mean, these cars, they sound fantastic with this 620 horsepower V10 engine that just sounds sensational. And they look good as well. And boy, when we see racing like this, as good as this as well, this is what we come to see.
11, that's Mancinelli. We were just talking about Daniel Mancinelli, who had qualified in 4th. He has slipped back, and now the 6th. Stephen Agacani right there with him. Agacani trying to get a run, as is the number 1 of Kyle Marcelli just behind. Mancinelli's going to stay defensive in that black and fluorescent yellow. Number 11 stays defensive down the left side. That works to his advantage. Now the 3rd car in that train is the number 1 of Kyle Marcelli. Marcelli, a former champion in both the IMSA WeatherTech Michelin Pilot Challenge Series as well as in World Challenge. Very experienced. Won a World Challenge Championship in an NSX, an Acura NSX, a car with a similar balance, I would think, to this Lamborghini.
Yeah, so you've driven similar cars, as you say, but not like this one. So it's any car is a steep learning curve. But Nico Jubin, he's driven all sorts of cars over the years. He through the early 2010s, let's say, he was on the road to Indy. He had a lot of success in the early stages of the road to Indy ladder. He won the USF 2000 championship back in 2015. He was 3rd in the next step of the ladder. He won 3 Indy Lights races, just 1 step away from the Indy cars before he realized he just didn't have the money and the funding behind him to move on up into the Indy cars, so looked to make a career for himself in sports cars, and here he is now back in sports cars in North America, running in that battle for the lead, having started from the pole position.
Good stuff. Patrick Liddy has joined the back of the field, and actually he's going through the front of this battle, and Stephen Agakani in the white number 6 was trying to use Liddy to help him get through. He's been battling lap after lap with Kyle Marcelli in the black and blue number 1, and Liddy has just taken both of them and has his sight set forward. That is a different class car as well, and that's what you've got to be aware of when you're out there battling with each other. The 31 of Patrick Liddy is a Pro-Am class car, fighting with 2 pros. He's bested those pros and picked up 2 positions.
Just great racing all the way through here. I mean, he's running in the Pro-Am class, but he wants to get that car in a good position, so his AM driver, who's a lot less experienced than him, is going to have an opportunity to hold off the other AMs in the Pro-Am category in the latter stages of this race. So yes, it's not a battle for class position for Patrick Liddy, but he wants to be as high up the order as he can before he hands over that car to Ophir Levy later on in this race.
Well, and think about this too. You're talking about Patrick Liddy. The more cars he can put between himself and the second place car in category, which is the 22 of Luca Persiani right now, if he can get more cars in between when he puts his gentleman driver in, that's more cars that Chris London, who will climb aboard the 22, will have to get by. So it's just some buffer in between. That's what you're trying to do for your partner in the car.
It is. And so there's every second out on the racetrack you're going to fight for. These cars are the same. We're talking about the 4 classes, and the cars are absolutely identical all the way up and down this field. And so it's really just down to the quality of the driver and experience of the driver. And experience is so important in these cars. Patrick Liddy, he's trying to make up before he started in 11th position. He's already made up 5 positions, kind of lost one now again to Daniel Mancinelli, but some super battling through this field.
Richard Antonucci pulling away, and then it's about a 5-car train led by Nico Jamin in the 13, the red 13, and then you've got 4 pretty much in lockstep, and behind them just a bit is Daniel Mancinelli in the black and fluorescent yellow number 11, who's kind of lost his way just a little bit. But this is the nature of Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America action. You actually see this kind of action all around the world. The thing that's impressive to me, Jeremy, is this Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan Evo. It's a race car, but 70% of it is the street car, and that's impressive. It just shows you what kind of a supercar the Huracan is that you can buy to drive on the street. If 70% of it finds its way to the racetrack, and then the other 30% is modified so these guys can go racing. You hear about a lot of people trying to take care of their sports cars, their supercars, because they're fragile. These cars are not that.
They are driven hard. They really are driven hard, and this is a tremendous race here. That 4-car battle for second place. Richard Antonucci, I think, just using, he is the track record holder here. He won the pole position back in 2016. Actually, was the last. Actually, 2017. The cars were last year, but that record dates back to 2016 here, when Richard Antonucci put his car on the pole position from 205.7. His last lap to 2 minutes 10.5. But super consistency from our race leader. Each of the last 2 laps within 0.03 of a second of each other. That's pretty good going on a 3.5-mile racetrack.
Well, you're certainly not going to see that consistency out of the next 4 cars in line, because it's bop and weave every lap. Now, Wearing in the 61, trying to find a way by Nico Jamin in the red 13 just in front, that purple and gold lurking in the mirrors, and then just behind that, the Bud Light entry, Madison Snow, the 16, under attack by the 48 of Alec Udell. You said it, from the Woodlands. A lot of people call that Houston. People who live in the Woodlands call it the Woodlands, Jeremy. They're very specific about where they are. At being a native Houstonian, I understand that. So good battle here, and it just shows the talent of the drivers. The top 6 cars on the racetrack, and I'm going to throw Patrick Liddy in it. Actually, I'll call the top 10. Some of the best sports car drivers in the world, and they have driven some of everything. You think about some of the trophies that sit on the mantle. Daytona Rolex 24-hour trophies, Sebring 12-hour wins, championship trophies. Guys up front have all of that experience, and they're putting it to play right here at Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, and Alec Udell in that car number 48, as we see a quick spin there for that's Sandro Espinosa, who was running in a 19th position, 5th in the AM category. That's one of the TR3 racing entries. It looks like he has had a spin. It looks like that car might be dead sick of that turn 18, isn't it? Through that triple apex right hand. He's got it going fired again. Away he goes. It would have been a strange place to spin, I would think.
I think one of the problems is whenever you spin a car like that and the fuel gets sloshed, sometimes you have a hard time picking it up, the car stalls, and you see that belch of flame out of the back, and it is startling at first, but it's just a lot of raw fuel that's been caught up in the system that gets pushed out through that red hot exhaust. He does it on his own, gets wide, then gets out on the paint. That's in the 13-14 area of the racetrack, and then around he goes. Easy to do in that portion of the racetrack. The car is very loaded on the left side, especially the left front if you need to adjust the throttle. And it's real easy to pin that left front and around it goes. Yeah,
so the good news is he has got going again, and he will be handing that car over later in this race to Loris Spinelli, who's a super fast driver. He had a lot of success here a few years ago when he drove for a different team. He won 2 overall races. He won 8 Pro-Am races that year. That was back in 2018, and making his return to the series. So it will be Loris Spinelli who takes over from Nicola Signoretti later in this race.
Richard Antonucci out front in the pro category still. Patrick Liddy leading Pro-Am. Go back to the Am category. It's Trevor Andrusko aboard the 38 in an LB Cup. Manella leads there in the number 4. Remember, 4 different classes of cars. So those are your 4 leaders as the 48. The native Texan, Alex Udell, I should say, trying to get the best of the 61. But that's a fight that's been going on for laps, and a problem for the 53. A little bit further back is a little off-track excursion there. That's one of the great things about being here at the Circuit of Americas. There's not a lot of stuff to hit. There's a lot of runoff room. Trust me, if I were driving, I could find something to hit. But for these drivers, a lot of the areas on the racetrack have a lot of runoff room. And if you spin, that extra asphalt as the car is spinning helps dissipate the speed and the energy. So the car comes to a stop, hopefully, before it gets to one of the barriers. Udell still all over the back of Wearing as they head up through the 5-6 area, through turn 8, the right-hand carousel, and then a quick flick through 9, the left-hander. Takes you down the hill, another little kink, turn 10, and then a run to a good braking zone, perhaps now passing zone at the entry to 11. But the question is, do you really want to slow yourself down there, especially when there's a car behind you? What you need is the run through 11, down the longest straightaway, and into the braking for turn 12. That's exactly what Alex Udell is trying to do here. But I'll tell you, the good run off of turn 12 belongs to Wearing.
Does. He made a really good exit there, able to pull that edge out a little bit on the straight, so over Alec Udell, who's made a really fine debut in these cars. He lost a position on the first lap, down to 6th position, but now up to 4th, and he is giving Max Wearing all he can handle. So running wide there on the track exits. But Alec Udell, a couple of years ago, he went over to, he's another young driver who went over to Europe. He won the European FIA GT4 Championship a couple of years ago. Now got the opportunity to come back over here and join this Multimatic, this Kelly Moss Road and Race, team, which is a huge experience, primarily in Porsches. That's one of the teams that is also making its debut this weekend in Lamborghini Super Trofeo.
You know what's interesting, as I watch this battle with Alec Udell and Max Wearing, 2 very different driving styles I see going on here. It looks like Alec Udell in that white 48 is able to roll speed from the turn-in point to the middle of the corner, but it seems like Max Wearing is able to pick up the throttle a little bit quicker. So you see Udell close in around the apexes, but I don't know if it's a car setup or just a driver preference, but Wearing seems to be able to get back in the throttle and get the launch off the corner a little bit sooner. The braking is going to happen in the first half of the corner, but if the car leaps off the corner in front of you and you can't get close to it in the braking, that's a problem. So it's the other thing that it does, Jeremy, is it wears tires differently. So that could come into play as well here in this 50-minute race.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Nico Jamin has managed to edge away a little bit from this battle that's going on between Weary, Udell and Snow, trying to get a pretty much next to nothing covering those three cars. And Daniel Mancinelli isn't far behind either, nor indeed Carl Marcelli, who's only another couple of seconds back down the road. So, but Nico Jamin, first time in these cars, and that was 13 car in the second position, and he's now got a couple of seconds in hand over this super battle going on in his wake.
I think the thing that's impressive about Jamin as well is when you look at the amount of time that he has spent in prototype machinery over the last several years, stepping into a GT-based car with anti-lock brakes and without the aerodynamics that an LMP2-based car, a prototype, has. That's a big ask. It's a completely different feel to the driver. The speed comes in different areas of the racetrack and in different ways, and you really have to make sure that your brain is set in the right mode when you put the belts on, when you pull the helmet on, and understand completely the car that you're driving. And think about this, up front, 20 corners here at COTA. If you give up a tenth of a second to your competitors in each corner, you're 2 seconds off the pace. These drivers are nowhere close to being 2 seconds off of the cars around them, so it just shows you how evenly matched they are. Again, Alec Udell rolls the speed to the apex, but Matt Wearing able to jump off the corner a little bit more as Antonucci leads still, but smoke out of one of the Huracan Evos as they head into turn 12. Was that the 03 of Randy Soleri? Or is it the car just behind him? We saw that smoke. That's mechanical issues you don't see very often. That may be tire rub, I think, on the left rear for the 03 of Randy Soleri.
Yeah, it could be, I think. And Randy's running, he's stepping up a class this season, having won LB Cup last year, running in 22nd position, but all sorts of people to dice with. He's got LB Cup contenders fore and aft. So maybe it was a bit of contact earlier on that causing a bit of body rub there. I don't know about 03 cover. That's certainly something that he needs to be wary of, because you certainly don't want to get have that tyre rolled through by the bodywork.
No, not at all. But here's the thing. You also don't want a pit to change it. 1 minute and 30 seconds left to go before the pit window opens. So you'd like to stay on the racetrack, because if you come and fix it now, it won't count as your pit stop. You want it to count as your pit stop. So if he can hold on a little bit longer, that's what he needs. What he didn't need is this. That's how the damage occurred.
That's what caused it. That was Bill Pelichewski there getting into the back of Randy Solari under braking there. Pretty stout contact with the left rear of Randy Solari's car and right front of Pelichewski's. He's not known as Wild Bill for nothing.
I was going to say, you threw out the nickname in the grid, so I was waiting to see if you would revisit that after we saw that. And
Bill raced did a lot of racing in the Porsche GT3 Cup Series with him several years ago, and I haven't seen his name for several years, but great to see him back again. And he's just loving this opportunity to join this Kelly Moss Road and Race team, and he's having a good time out there. Yeah, he won't want to be making contact. It's not certainly, that wasn't part of his game plan, but he's good. He's good to see him back racing again. Oh, there's more contact.
Big schmozzle over here, damage to the 33 there on the right, and the 7 around backwards. Pit window should be open in 5 seconds. It'll open at 30. So the pit window is now open. There's the 33 with significant damage to the right front. John Hennessy in LB Cup, and the 7 around as well as part of that. That was Espinosa. Let's see if we can see what happens. The 33, the blue and gold car, big speed on the way in, and just for Espinosa and the 7, never saw it coming, and it's almost like John Hennessy, who is a reasonably experienced driver in these cars, he certainly has time in him, either completely missed his braking mark or got so far into the ABS he didn't know what to do. The car wasn't slowing down, and it was obvious that the braking had occurred way too late. Espinosa with a great job of getting that damage, number 7, off of the racetrack and into the grass. It looked like he was going to perhaps try to drive it around. Now he's gotten it into the grass. If he could get it to a cut, they could get it behind the wall, and that would greatly help the officials.
Yeah, that was clearly a mistake there from John Hennessy. Just carried too much speed. They just got a bit carried away in the braking area. Former commercial fisherman is John Hennessy. Then he had a high-powered, very highly technologically advanced demolition business up in the Seattle area. He retired a couple of years ago. He started track day about 2.5 years ago, and then started racing, did some races towards the last season. That was his debut. That was his first time he'd ever been on a race in a proper motor race with John Hennessy. So he's got some experience in these cars. He's done 6 races last season and planning to do the full campaign in 2021. But that was a mistake, I'm afraid, from John Hennessy, and he's going to bring out the full course.
Yeah, it was so odd because it was such a big mistake. You know, I mean, he came from so far back. I'm not sure he could have stayed on the racetrack at the exit of the corner had no one been there. Unfortunately, Sandro Espinosa was there, and hence the damage that you saw. So full course caution is out. Safety crews will tend to the stricken number 7, as the rest of the field, I would think, would use this opportunity to come to pit lane and take care of their mandatory pit stop. I'll tell you, one of the best safety crews in the business that I've seen throughout the Americas is right here at Circuit of the Americas. They always do such a great job. And the way this racetrack is laid out, we talked about it being an FIA grade A circuit, which has the best of everything. The way it's laid out, Jeremy, with a lot of inner ring roads, the officials are able to move around the racetrack, inside the racetrack, and get their safety equipment to a lot of incident scenes without having to get on the racetrack and spend a lot of time out there while the cars are going around. A lot of debris coming off the 33.
Yeah, there is, and that was really unfortunate. Certainly for both of those two contenders. I think that's going to end John Hennessy's day. He's clambering out of that car in the pit lane. We did see a couple of cars on the pit lane during his caution period. Daniel Mancinelli came in. I'm pretty sure that was after the caution wave, and I don't believe you can do your mandatory stop under full course caution. I think they have to wait until afterwards. However, there were a couple of cars at the tail end of the lap that were much farther back down the racetrack that were able to get in before the yellow came out. One of those was the number 51 of that's the car that I think has already been involved in a couple of incidents earlier in this race, but he was able to get in and will be able to make that driver change before we get back out again. It's Claude Signoretti, who was in the pit lane. He'll be handing over that car to Loris Spinelli, who is fast. And if he's already made that stop, that's going to put him in great shape, because none of these other contenders are going to be able to make their driver stops until we go back to green flag racing.
Well, you're exactly right. The pit lane does close. It was interesting, though. The pit lane opened, and there was a very short period of time, as you said, where cars had an opportunity. You can come to the pit lane if you need emergency service and you've got a mechanical condition, which obviously the 33 had. But I'm surprised that they weren't able to leave the incident on the racetrack and cover it with a local yellow a little bit longer, so that the pit window could open and everybody would have an opportunity. It's a very difficult and a juggling act by race control to determine whether they can leave a stranded car on the side, open the pit window, or the preference would be just don't open the pit window. You can make the call right now. It's not going to open at all, but it seems like at this point in time, they opened it for a short bit and then had to close it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the problem there for race control was the fact that the leaders were about to lapse several cars, I think. So there wasn't really an opportunity. What they did do is throw out the yellow before the leader came to the pit entry box. So there was no.
So they trapped.
Well, if you knew the rules, you weren't going to make a pit stop. Unfortunately, TR3. Is new to this series, TR3 racing, and I think they ducked into the pits there with Daniel Mancinelli, hoping to gain steal a march on the rest of the field, but that's not going to work out. There won't be a penalty for that. They'll just be able to rejoin, but they will be at the back of the pack when the pits open, and then they can make their mandatory stop.
and everything should kind of even out in the wash, so to speak. But very astute observation there, Jeremy. They were able to grab the leaders and make sure that it was closed before the leaders got there and had the opportunity to dive in. So by doing that, you kind of save the competition on the racetrack. And that's one of the challenges that goes on in race control. It's not only about the safety, that comes first for all the competitors. But as soon as you've gotten the safety aspect of it sorted, then comes the competition aspect. Are we going to unfairly disadvantage anyone by making this call? And if you can keep your competitors safe and make sure that the playing field remains fair and equal by how you bring out full course cautions or closed pit lanes, then it's better for everyone. Bit of a breeze, that's good to see. It's probably keeping things a little bit cool, and of course the other side of it is it's blown some of the weather out. Understanding though, some of the rain may be back tonight, and round 2 of the 2021 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship may be damp in the morning, so we'll have to wait and see. Be 12:05 tomorrow Eastern time is when we'll be back up with the Lamborghini action from deep in the heart of Texas. 22 minutes left to go in round 1. So impressed with the start that Richard Antonucci had, Jeremy. I mean, he knows these cars, he knows them well, obviously a very aggressive driver, and he took that experience and put it to play right at the drop of the green.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah, he's got 51 previous starts in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America, and in fact, Richard Antonucci, he was one of the drivers that Lamborghini employed when he was living in Italy to develop this car back in the mid 2010s. No one has more experience in Lamborghini racing worldwide, probably, than Richard Antonucci. As I said before, a lot of success over here as well in this championship, and he's been tabbed here by Dream Racing Motorsport to rejoin the championship, go for a third series title this season, and add to his win tally, which is already at 14 from his 51 previous starts. But yes, that experience, and of course, the track record holder here as well, at least in qualifying trim. He wasn't fastest in the race that year, by the way. It was his good buddy Eduardo Piscopo, who's also involved in developing these cars in Italy, who set the fastest lap and has a lap record in the fastest race lap record for these cars. But that will not be approached here with this as bumpy as the track is here this weekend.
Nice to see the fans here at COTA, and especially up on the tower. It's such a beautiful tower, and it's got a glass floor in it, and I know that because I've stood on the ground and looked up at it, because I've never gotten on it and stood on the glass floor and looked down, and I won't do that for a couple of reasons. One, I'm scared of heights, and two, I would have had to take the stairs the last time because the elevator wasn't working. So I wasn't going to go up the stairs to stand on a glass floor and look down at the ground. It just didn't appeal to me at all. But great views from up there. I've seen some pictures, and you can see the entire facility. And that's the other thing that's great. If you're a race fan, you certainly know about Circuit of the Americas, because it's one of the preeminent circuits in North America. What you may not know is what a multi-purpose facility this is. There's a concert venue inside the racetrack. They have some great musical events here. All kinds of go-karting going on the karting track that's out in front, just off the main straightaway behind the front grandstands. All kinds of events, track days, cultural events held here, and it really is kind of one of a hidden gem.
Cultural event. This is a cultural event, right? Sure.
Yeah, for us,
absolutely.
The smell of fuel and burning rubber is a cultural event. Absolutely.
By the way, I talked about number 51 car, along with number 47 and number 86. They have made a pit stop. Number 51 car at least was in before the caution came out. I'm not 100% sure about the other two, but they did lose a lap, so they are a lap down. They will gain that lap back when the other contenders make their pit stops, but I think it's not going to be quite as beneficial as it might have been for those teams that have already made their mandatory pit stop. But we're now inside 20 minutes to go, so theoretically, the pit window should be closed by now, but because we're on the yellow, the window is extended, and these cars will come in on as pretty much as soon as we go back to green flag racing.
That'll be interesting. I should know this, Jeremy, and I promise I have read the sporting regulations, but this one detail I'm missing. I know in other series where I'm an official, once they go back to green, you have to take the green flag on the racetrack and complete a lap before you can pit. So I've got to tell you, I'm not sure if that rule is in place in Lamborghini Super Trofeo.
And you're going to throw that one at me, aren't you? And I'm guilty.
I am. I put it. The hot potato is in your lap.
I just juggled this and threw it back again.
Yeah, delivered.
I'm trying. I mean, we've been watching these races. We should know this because we've watched these races for several years, and I can't remember whether or not you're allowed to duck into this. I have a feeling they are allowed to duck in as soon as it goes back to green. But the question is, well, I mean, but the problem is, the green probably won't be thrown until after they're around the final corner, which means it's too late to commit yourself. So that the answer, I presume, therefore, is no, and they would have to come in next time around.
And consequently, that would unfairly disadvantage the leaders.
Indeed.
So I can tell you this. We're about to find out, because the lights are out on the Lamborghini safety car and the field streaming behind, and the safety car is pulling away out of turn 15.
Yeah, the pace car better get out of the way, because he's got a snarly pack of cars we've seen how close the competition is. Of course, Richard Antonucci's lead that had extended out to as much as 6 seconds, actually, just before the caution period came out, is now back to just a car length or two over Nico Jamin. Alec Udell it was up into third place just before the caution came out, ahead of Madison Snow. Max Wearing actually lost a couple of positions in those lap or two, including one position on the lap before we went back. We went to the full course caution. So Max Wearing now in number 61, back in the 5th position. It's pro cars filling the top 6 positions. Then the best pro-am is Patrick Liddy. Then Stephen Agakani, another pro driver. Brian Ortiz, another pro-am. Nelson Piquet Jr., another pro. Another couple of pro-ams, and we go back to green. Brian.
I must have read a different driver briefing, because I read restart zone at turn 20. Antonucci went in between 18 and 19. I also read track limits would be enforced, and Antonucci was 10 yards outside the exit curb coming onto the front straightaway, as Agakani in the 6 a little wide at the top of the hill. That white number 6 gets pushed out wide, and he's going to lose a position perhaps.
I think he's made up a couple. Has he made up one position?
Well, there's the 60. Yeah, the 61.
Yeah.
Earring has dropped back.
Yeah. He was the big loser at the restart.
Yeah.
Max Wearing, the youngster from the Netherlands.
The players have been shuffled on this restart. Antonucci with the big jump. Like I said, he went in between turns 18 and 19. I thought it was going to be much later than that. And the answer to our question was yes, you have to take the green flag on the racetrack before you pit. So I would expect the pit window is now open, and we should see those cars coming to pit lane as the 61 trying to get positions back inside the 31. The 44 is there as well, and what can you get done with that? Well, I'm not sure, because it's not been played out yet. It won't be until the braking zone of turn 12.
Yeah, great stuff there. Wheel-to-wheel racing. It's going to get interesting in the braking area. Who's going to be latest on the brakes?
Liddy in the 31, a little wobbly in the back end. Back of that Lamborghini Huracan, moving around side to side under that heavy braking. The 44 of Piquet Jr. has slipped through. And in there as well, I think that is the white, red, and black number 46.
Now everybody will be in the pit lane, Mike, except for number 51 and possibly number 47 and 86, who also came in before the caution period and are currently a lap down to the leads. But everybody else should be in the pits this time around.
And the 46, that white, red, and black of Brian Ortiz has moved up in his Lamborghini Palm Beach entry. And look at the car streaming to pit lane. Off of turn 19, that sharp angle across driver's left to head into the pits and get it done, but Antonucci staying out.
And that's curious.
That's odd.
I thought they had to come in because the window is already closed. So that's something we're going to.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to try to turn
Oh, okay.
in.
Wait a minute. The window has been
moved.
extended. Yes.
So that gives Antonucci an opportunity to extend his lead. He feels like he's got a good car underneath him, and this is the typical in-lap, out-lap that they always talk about. You want to have a spectacular outlap. No, they're not leaving the pit lane here on cold tires like you would in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, but still, you want that outlap to be good. And if all your competitors pit and you stay on the racetrack and you've got a clean track in front of you, you need to put in the lap of your life. And that's exactly what Richard Antonucci is trying to do right now. Patrick Liddy stayed on the track as well, as did Persiani. And a problem, that left rear, that's the 03 of Randy Solari. He had that cut down tire earlier. I'm surprised he didn't pit as soon as the pit lane opened and he had the earliest opportunity.
Yeah. Unless he didn't make it around.
And there it goes. It just lets loose in one of those areas where you would expect it to. Heavy loading coming through turn 2 and then 3, and then the move back to the right, turn 4, and it's just loading that left rear that we had seen the smoke coming from. These tires are good, but they can only take so much. The problem now for the officials is Randy Solari on the side of the road. You need to let everybody see that car and basically let everybody know we're going to close the pits again. And that's exactly what Antonucci is doing. He's going, I got to pit. I got to get this done. And the officials are going to show that to everybody. I would think that Bo Barfield is thinking, all right, everybody sees it. Everybody knows we may need to go down again. Now's your time. If you don't pit now, I don't have a lot of compassion on you.
Yeah, and the good news for the teams here is, the incident is over in the S's. Everybody has the opportunity now to come into the pit lane, i.e. before they get to the S's, so there's no excuse for not making a pit stop now.
Antonucci in, no fueling.
Didn't do, apparently.
Wow. Antonucci in, no fuel, no tires. The teams can bleed pressures down, only 3 team members allowed to work on the car, and obviously no driver change because Richard Antonucci doing this solo. 94 seconds he needs to spend on pit lane. He needs to spend 63 seconds in his pit box. So I can only tell you from a race car driver's perspective, 60 seconds sitting still in the pit lane with nothing happening is an eternity. Especially if it's a warm and muggy day. As you said, the 88 did not pit, and it'll be interesting to see what the officials have to do with the 03 or whether they can get that stricken Lamborghini of Randy Solari out of the S's with using just local safety equipment. There is a big cut there in the fence where they can potentially move the car behind, but you never like to put safety equipment on the racetrack when cars are out if it is all possible to do it in any other way. So I'm sure they're talking to the team saying, is there any way he can limp that car to that cut? Every driver is shown on a map where the areas are that you can tuck the car, and you'll also notice, if you're a race fan, orange paint on the end of a lot of the barriers, the walls around here. That orange or yellow paint signifies to a driver, this is a place where you can park the car. This is a place of safety to bring the vehicle if you have a mechanical problem. So I'm sure they're on the radio with the crew of the 03 saying, does he see a place that he can move the car? And now the 88 is in.
Yeah, and the other car that did not stop, I think a couple of the cars did not stop. The other ones being Alan Metney from Austin, Texas, who also now brings the number 99 car onto the pit lane, just a few seconds behind the youngster Gianni Torino, who's got those very distinctive Italian flag colours on his car. I believe he was born in South Africa, Gianni Torino, but now lives in Florida. I hope I'm right on that. But it's his father who is the team principal here. Torino Racing, new again to the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Series for 2021. The youngsters are doing a nice job in those early stages.
Timing and scoring showing the 82 not in the pits yet either. That's the Change Racing Lamborghini Charlotte entry of Scott Welleman Wellham's finally getting his taste of Lamborghini Super Trofeo action. He had planned to do this last year, but his plans got scrapped because of the pandemic. So perhaps he's just saying, hey, I want to keep driving. I don't want to pit. I would expect Change Racing, as experienced as that organization is, they won all 4 championships last year, that they're on the radio with him saying, you really need to pit. You really, you got to do this.
He's just having too much fun, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It was long, as you talk about the long layoff. His was a whole year trying to get to behind the wheel of these cars.
All right, things should cycle through once Metney and Wellham pit, and we're going to see that battle up front again. Antonucci, Madison Snow, Stephen Agacani, Wearing. Those driver IDs should have changed with their stops. Well, they did. Well, no, Agacani's did not. We should see Jacob Edson in the 6th.
Yeah, there's a driver plug which the drivers are supposed to change manually when they get in or out of the car. So it seems like he failed to do so, Agacani. But yes, it will be Jacob Edson who takes over that 2nd place car. And that pairing last year, Agacani and Edson had a tremendous battle in the championship. They ended up 3 points shy of Madison Snow in the end, but they had 4 wins on the season to the 3 of Madison Snow. It was just a couple of unfortunate incidents they had earlier in the season that cost Agacani and Edson the championship, but they are certainly going for that championship here in 2021.
Richard Antonucci in that Bitbull number 27 entry has been the class of the field since about turn 3, lap 1, I think is about where he was able to sneak by and take over the lead. And it's an interesting sponsor on the side of it. If you're an investment person at all and you follow cryptocurrency, that Bitbull Capital manages cryptocurrency hedge funds. And so it's a really, really interesting program built there with the Dream Racing Motorsport Group. And as you said, they couldn't have found a better driver than Richard Antonucci to lead that campaign. The whole Dream Racing deal is pretty interesting as well. If you're ever out in Vegas, Dream Racing operates an experience at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and you can go drive, I think they have somewhere between 60 and 80 different types of supercars there. So you can go drive a Lamborghini Huracan at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The owner, Enrico Bertaggia, is an ex-race car driver, followed a similar career path in Europe that I did over here, won championships at a lower level, extremely good race car driver, won the Macau and the Monaco Formula 3 races in the same year. That is a huge feat. Formula 3 Italian champion, spent a little time in Formula 1, sports cars and the like, moved to the States in 2011 and started that Dream Racing program at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And he told me the other day, and Jeremy, I told you and you couldn't believe it because you were trying to do the math, they do both individual and corporate experiences. They'll run as many as 30,000 customers through in a year. And obviously some of those are large corporate programs that come through, but a lot of people go into Vegas gambling. A lot of them must be winning because they're going out to Las Vegas Motor Speedway and seeing Enrico and driving some pretty exotic cars, including Lamborghinis at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Yeah. Check out that if you go to Las Vegas. If you go to San Diego, you can go check out Antonucci's restaurant. He and his brother run I believe it's a pizza restaurant in San Diego.
Well, it had to be Italian, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely right in that.
46 flashes down the back straightaway. That is Brian Ortiz, the leader in Pro-Am, and that's kind of the same thing. I don't believe that should be Ortiz. That should be Brandon Godovic in that car. So I'm wondering if it's not driver IDs, but something with the system right now, because we're not getting the drivers changed throughout the field. And certainly race car drivers have been known to not always put the right driver ID in the right plug, but this would be a large number of them that have failed that test today, if that's the case.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, we know that Richard Antonucci is out front because he is the only driver doing it solo in the 27. Ortiz in the 46 has his hands full Just behind him, the white and purple, number 29. Trying to put pressure on. That's Victor Gomez, the fourth in the Pro-Am category. And we talk about Gomez, a 2020 champion in the Am category. I think you mentioned that earlier. And while it may not have been the most heavily subscribed category in 2020, he still had to race with other people, and he won every race in class. So Gomez moving up to Pro-Am this year, and I think the officials probably looked at it too and went, you celebrated a lot last year. And it's really funny. Most everything else in life, you want to succeed and move on because you take that as a compliment. But along with driver rankings, any kind of a class system in racing, you don't necessarily want to move on, do you, Jeremy?
You don't, do you? But you do want to move on to Lamborghinis. This is another great battle going on a bit further down the field between the number 99 and number 88. They are battling for the Am category. Alan Metney, who is he's won the Porsche GT3 Cup Masters category for each of the last 2 seasons. Also won a race outright as a master driver from Austin, Texas, leading that category now by just a couple of car lengths over the youngster Gianni Torino, right behind him in that red, white and green car, number 88. Look into the inside at turn 12.
Torino gets it done over Metney. Metney, like you said, with a lot of experience in Porsches, but that's a very different car as far as the balance go. But he's got a lot of experience, and he's taking it back to the youngster through 13, 14 into 15. You can get a pass done here if you look to the inside, but oh, he gets a little loose, gets on that apex curve, I think, and that has set Metney back just a bit there in the black 99 and given some breathing room to Torino in the 88.
So what we've seen some quick laps. The fastest lap of the race. I think we're going to go white flag this time. Yeah, we're just taking the white flag. So this is the final lap of the race now for Richard Antonucci. Got a new fastest race lap, by the way, turned by Marco Spinelli in Loris Spinelli, excuse me, in car number 51. He was a long way down the order. He was one of the cars that made that pit stop just before the caution period and lost a lap in doing so. He just turned the fastest lap of the race, but Richard Antonucci previously had set the fastest lap at 2 minutes 9.8, and he's out in front with about 4-second lead over Madison Snow, but Jacob Edson is closing a little bit on Snow for second place.
Be interesting to see how that plays out, but as you said, breathing room for Antonucci down the back straightaway, and he's one of the cars that has been consistent throughout the practice sessions, Jeremy. He was second in the first practice session, fourth in the second practice session, qualified third for this race, qualified second for tomorrow's race, and it seems like Dream Racing has been able to put a very consistent Lamborghini Huracan Evo underneath Antonucci in both dry and wet conditions. That may not play well for the other competitors because Antonucci and Dream Racing look very strong right now. Through turn 15, tight left-hander, now you've got a carousel, 3 right-hand corners, ever-increasing speed out of 18, which sets you up for the left-hand bend. 19, very quick corner down the hill to 20, the last time for Antonucci. Dream Racing, Bitbull, Lamborghini, Las Vegas. Richard Antonucci, your 2019 Pro Champion, will start 2021 in style, and he takes the victory at COTA in round 1 of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Championship in the Pro Division. Antonucci with the gold.
Tremendous drive there by Antonucci. Madison Snow just holds on to second place ahead of Jacob Edson by less than a second. So Edson turned a good lap on that last lap. Alec Udell just turned his best lap of the race on that last lap in the 4th position in car number 48. And now the top Pro-Am contender Brian Ortiz wins by less than half a second in car number 46 for the Precision Performance Motorsports team. That's car number 46, just ahead of last year's Am champion Victor Gomez for Change Racing in car number 29.
Gianni Torino in the 88. great run. We saw that battle that he had just a little bit earlier with Alan Metney, as Metney has dropped back down the order, but not so for Torino. He takes the victory in the AM category. And then in LB Cup, Matt Dicken out in front, still has not gotten to the checkered flag just yet, but for Dicken in the 36 from Change Racing, and we've mentioned that team a lot. For Matt Dicken, he's looking for the victory in LB Cup. Dicken up the front straightaway one last time and across the line. Lamborghini Charlotte, Change Racing, Matt Dicken in a solo drive take the victory here in LB Cup at Circuit of the Americas.
And that's the second LB Cup victory for Matt Dicken. He won one race last season, and a perfect way to start off his campaign. You talked about investors earlier on. He is an investment advisor by profession, is Matt Dicken, and he's come away with the LB Cup victory here this evening.
Good stuff. We had the long yellow, and the pit window got moved because of that full course caution. So a little bit of a wrench thrown into things there, but not for Richard Antonucci and his Dream Racing squad. Out front, led literally every lap here with the exception of the pit stop laps. And what a great, great drive. That was round one. Tomorrow could be completely different because rain again in the forecast, but that's what makes the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship so interesting. All the cars the same, the drivers different, the four different classes, the competition always just this good. We'll find out what tomorrow brings. Meanwhile, Richard Antonucci is going to be drinking some champagne in Texas here in just a few minutes. Wide, picking up some rubber. If you are a fan and you're watching on the broadcast, or you're a fan at the racetrack and you wonder why they do that, well, it's pretty simple. Rubber has weight, and rubber makes the tire bigger around, which adds to your ride height. So there's always a driver that's driving a little wider and picking up a little bit more out there, Jeremy. Do everything you can because, hey, you've got to make sure that these cars are set up to the limit, and so sometimes you want to make sure they're not under the limit, but you bring it into victory lane like Richard Antonucci is.
Yeah, he's massively experienced, Richard, in all sorts of different cars, not just Lamborghinis. So he knows all the tricks of the trade, and you could easily pick up a pound or two of extra rubber. And these teams do like to run them as light as they possibly can within the weight limit. So every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps, and the points help for Antonucci. He takes maximum points here in round one in Texas. The 16 of Snow and McAleer, they do a good job. Come home second. Agakani and Edson third in pro. And then back in Pro-Am, Ortiz and Godovic take the victory there. Torino takes the victory in Am. And once again, Matt Dicken bringing it home up front in LB Cup. That's round one from Circuit of the Americas. Round two tomorrow, and it's going to be a good one. 12:05 Eastern. Make sure you join us. Congratulations to all of our winners today. We'll be back to do it all over again tomorrow. The Texas Two-Step from right here at Circuit of the Americas. At the start, side-by-side action, we talked about Richard Antonucci being aggressive from the get-go. He was. Problems early on. No harm, no foul there for the number 7. Around and around we go. Good battles throughout, and problems. This racetrack always challenging for the drivers. That's why it is an FIA Grade A Formula One circuit. And a little argy-bargy, as well as the 03 of Randy Solari gets an unfriendly shove from the back. That would come back to haunt him. And the 33, John Hennessy, just a little over aggressive with the brakes there. And a problem, his problem, turns into a bigger problem for one of the other competitors. A little bit of debris on the racetrack, and that delays our pit window. And then that cut down tire, that tire rub that we saw, end up being a cut down tire for Randy Solari. We thought that might come to fruition, and it did. Was not able to get into the pit lane to do his pit stop before that came back to haunt him. There was no haunting at all for Richard Antonucci, as both the checkered flag and the Texas flag greet him at the start finish. Victory, round one of the 2021 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship goes to Dream Racing and Richard Antonucci. Congratulations. Good action here today in round one. It's exactly what we expected to see. Glad to see that the rain moved away. 12:05 tomorrow, the green flag falls again, and it could be a completely different racetrack. We'll have to wait and see what Mother Nature brings us. One thing's for sure, the competition will be just as good. We'll see you then.